live. But yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us. See us. We'll be starting in just a second. This stupid hat is really annoying me. Right, let me do a mic test because I forgot to do that. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Oh yeah, I should probably do that too.
Cool. All right, that's working. My phone should be on silent. Thank you kindly. Put that on silent too. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. Hopefully our audio is balanced well enough.
Oh yeah, let's I'll start talking. Let us know how I
Is
sound.
one of us too loud or one
Testing,
of us too
1 2
quiet?
3, testing. All right, that
I
is
see no
set.
complaints. We can probably. Oh, I closed the sound app because I'm dumb. Right, there we go. Right, I'm ready when you're.
All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3 2 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 297 for January 27th, 2023. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we got some really interesting news, including an exclusive from Zach. We'll be kicking things off with Microsoft earnings, which I know is typically not that exciting, but there was some important news there in terms of Surface and everything like that. We'll also talk about, of course, the latest news on Windows 11, including Zach's File Explorer thing, which we talked a bit about last week, but now he posted some photos of. There was also an interesting leak of Edge Phoenix, which is such a cool name. We'll explain what that is and what that means, and some of the changes that are happening in Edge, which are actually kind of nice. I will briefly go over the Razer Edge, which is now available for purchase, which is pretty cool. And I was one of the lucky people who I signed up early because I'm a nerd, and I was able to order it, and they already sent it. It came from Hong Kong like in 2 days, which is pretty amazing. So I have that here. I haven't even opened the box yet, though, but I'm really excited. So we'll talk about that thing. And we'll go to the thing of the week. Oh, I also have, we'll talk about my funny editorial I did with the latest culture war that's happening. They're trying to drag in Xbox into the mess, and it's like, I feel like this is just a failed attempt, but it's funny and stupid at the same time. So it is worthy to talk about because of that. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday? It seems like, from what I understand, it's very cold in the UK, and you guys are having energy issues and all sorts of stuff. I think Richard Devine, one of our managing editors, was talking about turning on the oil or something like that in his house.
Yeah, energy is really expensive here, so I'm trying not to use it as much as possible. So today I'm wearing a woolly hat, which looks stupid, but it keeps my ears warm.
It was funny though, because woolly hats and wearing them like all the time was fashionable a couple years ago. I think I don't think you look out of place with it.
Yeah, no, I just think my head shape just doesn't complement the hat very well, or maybe the hat doesn't complement my head shape. Either way, I look silly, but it's fine. Don't worry about it.
As someone who has, I would describe it as a tiny head. For me, I fully understand. What if there is a God and I pass away at some point, I'm just gonna be like, thanks for letting me not go bald.
Yeah.
I could not pull off being bald. I just would look absolutely terrible. I need to have a little bit more fluff on the hair to balance off my long face.
Yeah.
And even there, it doesn't work. So I feel you. I don't do hats because of that very reason. That said, when I walk the dog now, I wear a hat. I never wore a winter hat because I just didn't want to mess up my hair, and I thought I looked stupid. They do work though. It's amazing. You put that on, you go outside, you're like, wow, I'm actually pretty warm. Now I get why people wear these things. I know I'm late. Like there are some things I don't know about in life. I still don't know how to play solitaire. So squad goals I'll work on in 2023. All right, let's jump into Microsoft earnings. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because obviously it's kind of boring, but it's there was some news there that's worth talking about, and it's not unfortunately, good news. I don't think it's too surprising, but the essence is overall, Microsoft did well for revenue. They did all right, I should say. 52.7 billion in revenue was up 2%, which is not a lot, but it's up. That came in with sort of their projections for the quarter, so that's fine. Most of that, though, was around Azure and their enterprise stuff, so that's not too surprising. What is a little bit surprising, well, Windows OEM revenue, so the ability to sell licenses to partners like Lenovo, Dell, and HP, is sort of a reflection of the overall PC market, as you would imagine, at least indirectly. That went down 39%. Now, to be fair, that wasn't necessarily a surprise because last quarter Microsoft said, yeah, we expect it to decline in the high 30s. So 39 is, well, you don't get much higher 30 than that. So at least it didn't come in at 40%. I wonder if it was like 39.5 or 4, and you're like, oh, we'll just call it 39. So it's not a surprise. And as I mentioned before in the podcast, the way this works is as long as the company projects something, even if it's bad, as long as investors are aware of it, then it's fine, basically. Investors are like, okay, we understand the situation. Let's talk about what you're going to do about it, that kind of thing. But they don't like surprises. The one surprise, though, was probably, and this is under the more personal computing division. So the big surprise was devices. And devices used to be called Surface. Microsoft over the years has done more to obfuscate the Surface brand and its earnings. Like they used to actually talk about how much billions they would actually make in revenue. That's why we used to talk about like how the first time they broke $1 billion in Surface revenue for a quarter. They don't do that anymore. They pulled that out. Now it's just percentages in volume, basically. That too declined by 39%, which is kind of interesting in a sense because it lines up perfectly with the Windows OEM licenses. And so it's not abnormal, but they didn't project it to be that high. They said approximately 30% was what they're projected to be. So 39% is higher than that, which means, yeah, it did perform worse. Now, what makes this even a worse story is the fact that we just came off of the holiday season. And typically, you see a boost over the holiday season for, I think, obvious reasons. People buy stuff. Now, there's a lot of factors going into this, right? We've talked about this before. My favorite phrase, macroeconomic headwinds. The fact is, inflation. You were just talking about your own energy costs, right? Inflation's ridiculous. Even when I go grocery shopping, it's like a little trip to the grocery store is now like $60. And I'm like, geez, okay, I got to do this like 2 more times this week. So groceries are super expensive. So the good news is inflation's coming down, and it's been coming down consistently. So that seems to be ending. That's awesome. But that obviously hit consumers pretty hard. We saw it on our own site during the shopping season. People were just spending less. There's that. There's the looming recession talk, which now in the United States, they're projecting a mild recession. Still not great, but still, not as terrible. In fact, we actually had growth, 2.9% growth of the economy last quarter, which was better than expected. So the U.S. actually seems to be doing kind of all right here. But still, for working average people, the idea they don't want to necessarily go spend money they don't have to. And then there's the thing, everybody kind of has a laptop and PC now. We bought them all during the pandemic. So that market is naturally going to decline. It'll be higher than pre-pandemic. So you have all that. And then let's just be honest here that the Surface portfolio for the fall was kind of lackluster, right? It wasn't that exciting. The Surface Pro 9 5G, which we still didn't review. I swear it's coming someday, maybe. That ARM version was kind of the most interesting aspect of it. But let's be honest, that stuff isn't like necessarily going to sell a ton, especially when you have Apple's M1 and M2 out there getting all the attention. Surface Laptop Studio 2 Plus, also not that thrilling. Surface Laptop 5, beautiful device, nice upgrades, but again, nothing too amazing here. No boundaries were really pushed with these devices. It was mostly refreshes that were pretty mild. Yeah, the new colors look great, but it wasn't enough to get consumers to part with their money. When you combine all of that, yeah, it wasn't a great season. And I'll just also throw out there that Xbox itself was also down 13% year over year. And Xbox has had kind of a weak year as well. Obviously, no new news in consoles, and that's expected, right? Those only get updated every few years anyway. But I was joking around with this with Jez Corden, and you and I had this conversation before. Every time I see a commercial on TV for a brand new video game, it's so dramatic. I'm like, oh my God, it looks awesome. It's always like PlayStation. Like at the end, I'm like, of course. I almost never see Xbox commercials. And this is just long term. Microsoft hasn't really had any major console specific hits on theirs, and Halo certainly wasn't. And we absolutely know, what's happened with the Halo division recently. So, yeah, all of this stuff I think comes together, and it's not great. That said, Microsoft as a company, besides laying off 10,000 people, is still doing quite well. They're going to be leaning heavily on Azure, AI, enterprise, and innovations around that. And I imagine ways to sort of improve, the PC market and think of ways. They have to now think of creative ways where they can kind of boost the PC stuff. And that could be kind of interesting, right? When you do have this sort of pressure crunch, that's usually when you tend to get innovation. I mean, this is always my fascination with music, right? Some of the best rock albums ever made were always made when the band was about to split up. And it's like my favorite is like The Wall with Pink Floyd. The band was barely together at that point, yet it's still an insane album. Of course, you have the Beatles too, who are like that. So hopefully under these pressures, we'll start to see some more, creativity from Microsoft. And I think the thing to watch, obviously, is OpenAI, ChatGPT, and AI, and how that's going to be integrated through Microsoft services. They're going heavy into that, and you're going to start to see that stuff weaved throughout their products. I think that'll be the interesting thing. I think that's where they'll still do well in the market. Zach, do you have a thought on any of this stuff, specifically, the Surface sales and last quarter's device offerings?
I think you really nailed most of the sort of talking points there. I will say, a few people sort of honed in on Microsoft's phrasing in the post-earnings call. Microsoft used the phrase execution challenges when referring to its Surface, or I guess devices, performance. That could mean a whole bunch. That's just like jargon essentially it could mean anything, right? Execution challenges. It could mean anything from we wanted to release more products, but we couldn't. The stuff we released was just the only stuff that was ready. Or it could mean we always intended to release those products. We ordered too many and nobody bought enough. So it could range from anywhere. From so we don't really know what execution challenges means. If I had to guess, I would say it was, they intended to ship those products. They did. They ordered too many and sold too few, and therefore they are down significantly as a result. Now, as you mentioned, this was projected more or less. What are the projections for next quarter for the devices division? Are they? I assume they're still going to be down.
Unfortunately, I didn't do my homework and I forgot to look that up.
Okay, sure.
But we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, I would say that it's unsurprising, as everything Dan mentioned there is the reason why. But also, you've got to think about the logistics of the lineup, which was basically all refreshes. Whereas the year before, the Surface Pro 8 had come out, and that was the first big redesign of the Surface Pro line since the Surface Pro 3, more or less. So that was probably a big upgrade year for Surface Pro users, most of which would have likely upgraded to the Pro 8. The Pro 9 is very much an S-year upgrade, so less and less people are going to be more interested in the Pro 9 because a lot of the big upgrades probably happened a year ago. So that's probably another reason why Microsoft sales weren't too strong this time around. But also, it's everyone's down. This isn't unique to Surface or Microsoft. Intel are reporting bad numbers. I'm pretty sure Dell and HP have reported bad numbers. Everything is down, and that's the economic climate. That's all of the stuff going on in the world right now, which is contributing to this. And above all, everybody just bought new PCs. PCs aren't phones. You don't buy them on a yearly basis. And considering, when I say everyone, I'm obviously being pedantic, but lots and lots of people over the pandemic bought new PCs for the first time in years. So with that, us coming down quite steeply from that makes sense, and we're not gonna, I think it'll be a little while before it plateaus, I guess. But I don't think we're gonna see any gains for a long time, if ever, from this point on, because unless Microsoft, to be fair, thinking about it, this is why a Windows 12 might be quite important for Microsoft. These new versions of Windows do encourage people to maybe buy new PCs. Those of you who are still using an 8th gen Intel PC that came out in 2017, 2018, you may not have felt the need to upgrade to a new PC, especially considering Windows 11 officially is supported on your device. But Windows 12 might not be. That might be the point where you finally feel pressured to do an upgrade. And this is how Microsoft may be able to inflate upgrade cycles going forward, the new versions of Windows. But yeah, I think from this point on, everybody's already bought their new PCs, so it's no longer going to be like 50% more sales in last quarter or whatever. It's now we're on the downturn, and I think we shouldn't look at it as a negative. We just look at it as something that makes sense. We're not buying PCs on a yearly basis. Nobody does that. So why would we continue to see everything climb when everybody's already bought their new PC in the last half a decade?
Yeah, we are seeing I would say a course correction. Even Google basically admits that they overhired, and that's what happened a lot during the pandemic. And the pandemic really was just this like weird anomaly, right? First of all, a lot of companies not only paused hirings, but started laying off people because there's this idea like, oh my God, people aren't going to be buying stuff. We don't know what this means. And then it kind of turned out to be the opposite. It turned out like actually there's strong demand for this certain stuff. And this work from home concept, which you and I have been living with for many, many years at this point, became more mainstream and sort of changed the dynamic, which is still changed, although there is a lot of reports of companies now pushing back and trying to get people back into the office, mostly driven by the fact that these companies have extended leases that they're paying for. And they're like, we need to use this property because that's part of our value. But companies like Microsoft are renegotiating those leases and trying to close down buildings. But some companies are insisting on it. So all that's changed the dynamic, which I think is why you're going to continue to see push it like around webcams and remote technologies. But yeah, it looks. But no one knew the end game. Yeah, sure, it was definitely postulated that this won't last forever. People will stop buying laptops and PCs, but no one knew necessarily how big the drop would be. I will say, of course, you did mention phones, and that wasn't spared either. We didn't cover this news, but IDC said world smartphone shipments dropped by 11.3% in 2022, the lowest since 2013. So wow. That is significant. And Apple wasn't spared either. Year over year, Apple was down 15% in terms of market volume and shipments. And everyone was in that range. Xiaomi was, I think, the worst at minus 26. Samsung was minus 15.6%, so pretty close to Apple there as well. But yeah, so the smartphone market is also hurting. And I think it's for kind of obvious reasons there, which is they're boring. It's like year after year, we're just getting better cameras and better displays. And yeah, it's all nice. It's not insignificant, but it's not necessarily enough to listen, if you have Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra with how big is its camera? 105 megapixel, I believe it is. Yeah. The rumor is now that the new one's going to have a 200 megapixel, which is astonishing. But if you have 105 megapixel, you're probably like, I'm okay for now. I'm all right. Yeah. I don't feel I need 200 megapixels. But then you have foldables, and that's the most interesting thing. But the problem with foldables is obvious. Their price, $1,800. It's going to be, a lot, even with the nice trade-ins, it prices a lot of people out of that category. It'll continue to evolve, but that category still needs to mature a bit before it really kind of catches on.
The last thing I want to mention is, as you mentioned, when times are tough, it might force Microsoft to buckle its belt and actually try to push innovation in Surface and actually do some interesting new things to try and differentiate a bit further. I think maybe Microsoft, because since it isn't just Microsoft, it is literally the whole industry. It's okay to be performing this poorly. It's not like Microsoft is having an issue that nobody else is having. Everybody's having the same issue. So it's not, if it was just Microsoft, then maybe the discussion of maybe it's time to wrap up Surface could be on the table. But since everybody's going through this, I don't think that conversation makes sense. However, I think, honestly, this does put Microsoft in a more in a position where it can start to sort of be weird again with Surface. I feel like maybe they got a little bit complacent with Surface in the last handful of years, because sales were coming in and they kind of got lazy, and the refreshes were refreshes. There were no longer new interesting things every year. This may force Microsoft to go back to actually trying new things and trying to differentiate, because I feel like there's less pressure on a product if it is unique and innovative, because
Sure.
Microsoft
Yeah.
internally can go, yeah, this thing is different, this thing is quite new, so we don't expect this to sell mass market, but that's okay as long as they are aware of that and they still decide to greenlight a product. That's good. Whereas the Surface Pro and the Surface Laptop, for example, I think there's a lot of pressure on those devices to sell well, because those are the money makers. And so if Microsoft was to sort of step back and go, right, the Surface Pro 10 or Surface Pro 11 is an entirely new thing, maybe that would be beneficial to Microsoft, because yeah, sure, it will sell less now, but they know that. And as long as they can keep that within check, then that should be okay for them as a business. So yeah, maybe this will actually be good news for Surface in the long term. We might see some more interesting stuff from them in the next handful of years. I would certainly hope so. Foldables are certainly up and coming in the PC space. Windows 12 is rumored to support them, which means, I'd like to see a first-party device from Microsoft that also sort of showcases the best of that. That could be the new Surface Pro X. They have that brand that's now sort of sitting idle. Yeah, and obviously, Surface Duo 3, which will be a foldable, that'd be really interesting to see. I'd love to see them do more unique stuff with the Surface Laptop series. The Surface Laptop, I think, has become the most stale over the last handful of years. That's due for a major redesign, I think, at this point. Thinner bezels, 120 hertz, haptic touchpad. Basically, they should go after the MacBook Air, but make it like a pro version of the MacBook Air.
Yep. No disagreements there. I still feel like the most interesting device in their portfolio besides the Duo is the Surface Laptop Studio. I think it's one of their best devices. But
I think that's a low margin or a low market device, right? I don't think that sells much compared to the other ones. The Laptop Studio, the Duo, and the Surface Studio, I think, are their least selling products, but they're like I'd call them the hero products, right? They are what really defines Surface. I know everyone looks at the Surface Pro, and that is what defined Surface originally, but the 2-in-1 is now a normal form factor, so we can no longer consider that as a defining factor of the Surface line. I definitely think the Laptop Studio and the Surface Duo are the two sort of... When I think of Surface, I think of devices like that these days more so than the Surface Pro, but maybe that's just me.
No, I think you're right, and I do believe the Surface Go... the Surface Go and Surface Laptop are their highest volume shipping devices, which is kind of funny. It's basically a more traditional thing, it's including Surface Laptop. But yeah, I'd like to see Surface Laptop refreshed. But I don't know what their plans are for 2023, right? So the question is, were they anticipating this and kind of knew about this? The Surface team obviously isn't like, oh, new year, we need to create a whole new category device. Right. They don't operate that way, right? They operate in the sense of, hey, we have this new idea. Do we think this is feasible? Let's do some market research. All right, that's a cool one. And then they start investigating whether they can manufacture it. And then it comes out to market eventually. But they don't just do that willy-nilly, even though we would like it as an audience. But yeah, we'll have to see. And they do keep their Surface team pretty lean, which is why they jump around these kind of different projects and things sort of stagnate a bit while, they buy themselves some time on another product and everything. So we'll see what happens.
I know Microsoft already has an accessories line, but I really think they should do accessories more. Like, I know they do some keyboards and mouses and stuff, but they don't do a Windows Hello webcam. Why aren't they doing a Windows Hello webcam? Do one. Yeah. I would buy that straight away. I think they should just expand into accessories, because accessories are cheaper to make and buy, and so you can move more of them usually. And a successful accessories business is not a bad business to have in addition to a PC line business. And I know they'd then be competing with the likes of Logitech and whoever else it makes accessories these days. But who cares? Just do it.
Yeah, they should definitely be doing their own high-end webcam with Windows Hello. No argument there. They should also just take basically the Surface Laptop Studio's touchpad with Sensel's technology and just release it as a standalone product, like the Magic Mouse Pad. Yeah, I've been talking to Sensel about that for years, and they want to do that, but they just literally design the technology, and they do it the full stack of it, but they don't manufacture stuff. Nor do they ship things themselves.
The company Bridge briefly sold a touchpad for Windows. It wasn't Sensor, obviously. It was using a traditional dashboard mechanism, but that was an interesting device, and I'd love to see Bridge come back with a Sensor-powered version of that.
Yeah.
Because like basically whatever accessories Apple sells that benefit a piece like a computer, Microsoft should be sort of doing its own version of that. And with the brains behind Surface, they could make unique stuff as well that nobody else is doing. Magnets are great. More accessories should be magnetic and attached to other things and just be awesome in that way. Why aren't more accessories magnetic? Like Microsoft should be here trying to, they look at a mouse and go, how can we make the mouse better? Or if they're looking at a keyboard or a webcam, how can a webcam be better? They should just be doing this stuff, and they're not. And I don't know why.
Even speakers, they
Yeah,
do now. They do like conference speakers, but they don't
that's right.
do like high end consumer. Like it's kind of funny. We'll be talking more about this. The Razer Leviathan V2 Pro, which is that soundbar I was talking about last week. It's an interesting thing that Razer made it, and like Microsoft didn't, because it has basically an IR sensor. I forgot what the kind of sensor it is in front of it, but it uses like beamforming, and it detects a person is there, detects their face, their distance, and all that, and then calculates and creates the sound profile to that person based on that. Like, that's a very Microsoft thing. Like, I
Yeah.
felt like and it's funny because, and I think I mentioned this before, the CEO of Razer, Min Ling, I forgot, I'm sorry, I'm messing up his name off the top of my head, but he actually worked with Panos Panay, and they're like friends and they know each other. So that's why you see a lot of like Razer's sort of cues and the way they do things is sort of similar to why how Surface is. They go after that high-end, premium, unique design market, but they don't do that. Yeah, they don't do the webcam. Yeah, keyboards are kind of, they could do probably more there as well.
Monitor, like the Surface Studio monitor, should just be
Yeah,
a
of
thing they
course,
should have
right.
done years ago at this point.
Yeah, that's another weird one. I think it's also because they operate on such a small budget, and they tell themselves they don't want to be a hardware company.
Right.
And then they keep making hardware, but they don't want to go in at full blast. And so I imagine their budgets, it's a hard ask, when you're going to
Yeah.
the higher ups at Microsoft, be like, hey, can we have more money because we'd like to do this project? Like, you have to show that return on value and all this kind of stuff and how they think they could be different. But yeah, who knows how that division operates and their
I would,
plans there.
I'd love to see them make a Surface Mac Mini as well, like that. I think if they
Right,
could match the price at $599, obviously they can't match the power yet at $599 because Apple Silicon
right.
is magic. But at $599, bring your own keyboard, device, and screen, whatever, from Surface, I think would sell really well, especially for businesses who maybe looking for those sort of small box site shaped devices running Windows, which they don't really exist. I mean, they do exist in the Windows space, but they're not ultra premium kind of things, which Microsoft could certainly pull off really well. And then they could sell a monitor along with it, and their own keyboard and mouse and webcam and all that stuff. It could be its own sort of ecosystem. But yeah, anyway, that's just ideas. Microsoft, if you're listening, those are free. You can have those.
Well, at least in the meantime, if Microsoft isn't doing this stuff, we have Lenovo doing the
That's true. Yeah.
the Yoga Book 9i. Is that what it is? The Yoga? Yeah, I think that is the one with the dual screens that was announced at CES. They also have their X1 Fold coming out. You have HP, who's just consistently nailing laptop design and hardware. I think they're really good. Dell has their crazy XPS lineup. So then you have Razer, who's just coming out with great stuff. So you have at least the OEM partners are sort of picking up the slack and making really interesting things. So in a way, it's not that big of a deal, but it's nice to see because we are kind of fans of what Surface does. But
Yeah.
anywho, let's move on to Windows 11. So there were, of course, a
Yep.
couple updates with the Insider program this week, and you also had a little bit more on that File Explorer revamp. Why don't you explain to the audience what that is all about?
Yeah, so regarding the actual insider builds, nothing too groundbreaking this week. There is a new Facebook Messenger widget, which is now available in testing, which is really quite interesting. Obviously, Microsoft opened up the widgets panel to third-party developers earlier or late last year. And slowly but surely, we are actually seeing some big names in there. Facebook's in there now. The phone link app is also getting a widget as well, though they don't announce it in here, I don't think. And that's basically it for the build this week. What I really want to talk about is the File Explorer stuff. So we did mention this, I think it was in last week's episode. There were references to an updated File Explorer spotted in the recent Insider Preview builds. And this week I was able to publish internal concepts mock-ups, I guess, of what that is going to look like. And it's basically confirms what we already knew. Yes, they are working on a sort of WinUI and XAML-based update to the rest of File Explorer. The homepage will have like these larger thumbnails along the top in a recommended area, which will sort of give you an overview of things you've opened recently, as well as things the Microsoft recommend, things that you might want to open based on other files you've opened previously. They're also updating the details pane with lots more information. A lot of it ties in with Microsoft 365. So if you use Microsoft 365 for work, or if you use it with friends and family, and you have shared lots of files either via email or shared the actual file itself and have multiple people editing documents and whatnot, that activity will show up directly within File Explorer and then the details pane and stuff. So that's all pretty nice stuff. Very, very, I guess, necessary update for the File Explorer, because as we mentioned before, the top of the UI is all modern, but the rest of it is still legacy. It'd be nice to actually get them to make the whole thing consistent with Windows 11 designs and whatnot. So that is on its way. Not too sure when it's going to show up. I was told it's supposed to be this year, so it's not a Windows Next Valley thing. It should be at some point this year, either in one of the moments, either the summertime moment, which I think is moment 3, or it'll be timed with the version 23H2 release in October, November timeframe. So look forward to that. That's likely show up inside of preview builds in the next handful of months, which is really nice. But yeah, that's really it for the Windows 11 news. Again, not too... Oh, well, actually... one more thing we need to briefly talk about. This news sort of came out today. Microsoft is now going to force, or automatically rather is the word they say, they're going to start automatically updating Windows 11 21H2 users to 22H2. That starts this week, and it is happening in waves. The first people to see the update in Windows Update will be the ones who have been running Windows 11 21H2 for the longest. So those of you who updated it on day one, if you check Windows Update now, you may see an update to 22H2 waiting there if you're still running last year's version. And that's really interesting, because that's not how Microsoft handled feature updates with Windows 10. With Windows 10, Microsoft respected the user's choice. If you didn't want to upgrade to the newest version of Windows, you didn't have to. You could stay on the current feature update you were currently on until that version of Windows 10 ran out of support. Then you would be forced to upgrade to the latest version of Windows 10. Version 21H2 is still in support until October this year. Yet Microsoft is now starting that automatic upgrade progress today. So I guess they're not doing the same thing they did with Windows 10. And if you are running Windows 11 21H2, you will at some point be automatically upgraded to 22H2 over the next handful of months. And I do not know if there's an option to decline it. I know if you're using a Windows PC in the business side of the world, they can manage that and block the update. But I do not think that consumers or just people unmanaged PCs can block that update once it's offered. So that's really interesting. I'll be curious to see how people react to that when that actually starts rolling out to more people. But to be fair, 22H2 is it's a better version of 21H2. So I don't see why people wouldn't want the update. I know people kind of just get worried that the update is going to change stuff, and hey, it might, or break stuff rather. But I think for most people, the 22H2 release is a better Windows 11 than 21H2 was. So I'm not too bothered by this. But like I said, we'll see how people react. But yeah, that's Windows 11 news for the week.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, the widget thing is kind of cool. I hope to see more besides Facebook. But I still have to try to get back into my Facebook account. I got to follow up on that. I lost a 2FA, and Facebook is just there. There's no like customer support if that happens. It was like on Twitter years ago where you get locked out. It's just sort of like
game over. Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, maybe some point someone will get back to you, but it hasn't happened yet on my Facebook. Not that I used to post a lot, but I kind of like to let people know I'm still alive.
Sure. Yeah.
If they need to contact me. All right, let's move on to Edge Phoenix. Ooh, that's such a cool name. Phoenix rising from the ashes, obviously a big metaphor. So
yeah,
explain this cool project and what it meant and what it could mean going forward.
So this is something that Walking Cat on Twitter posted about first. I actually had this story almost waiting in the wings. But yeah, he got to it first. Props to him. That's totally fine. I'm able to credit him now. So if Microsoft gets mad, I could be like, no, it wasn't me. It was it was Walking Cat. But yeah, he posted a clip of a split view mode in Edge, and he mentioned the codename Phoenix and how it was essentially a reimagining of the Edge browser with an updated UI and new productivity features. And I had basically the context for what that story is, and that is, yeah. So Project Phoenix is a version of Edge that Microsoft has sort of thought up internally. They started working on this last summer, I believe, and it's a new take on the Edge browser that differentiates it from Chrome. You know, when the new Microsoft Edge first launched, they were very careful to change the UI a lot. They kind of wanted it to look like Chrome. They wanted to keep it familiar to Chrome users, so Chrome users would feel less scared, I guess, or less unfamiliar with Edge. If they were to accidentally open Edge or briefly use Edge, they'd be like, oh, it's basically like Chrome. This is quite nice. But with Phoenix, that is not the case. They actually want to embrace Windows 11's design language. They want to actually make Edge look like its own browser, with rounded tabs along the top, acrylic context menus, and some of this stuff is already available to test in Edge in the various versions of preview versions of Edge using Edge flags. The rounded tabs are available to test already. Split View just got into the Canary channel this week, so you can test that as well now. But yeah, the idea is a rebirth of Edge with an actual Microsoft aesthetic that makes sense on Windows 11. And some of the features that they are working on is, as I mentioned, Split View, which will allow you to view two web pages side by side under a single tab. Now you may be thinking, why wouldn't you just drag the tab out the window and snap two Edge windows side by side? And yeah, you can do that. But Microsoft's thinking for a split view within a single tab is that it allows you to it keeps the rest of the UI clean. Currently, especially if you use the Edge sidebar, spanning two Microsoft Edges side by side, you get that sidebar down the middle. It's kind of annoying. With this built-in split view, the two web pages are quite literally side by side. There's nothing getting in between them. There's no separate windows. The taskbar remains clean as a result, and it makes more sense for the UX side of things. So that's their thought process behind that. And they have internal data. They've done internal research for a lot of these features. And apparently split view was one of the hero features when they did this focus group testing, where Microsoft basically showed them concepts for Edge Phoenix, and then they had to vote which features they liked the most, and split view was apparently the top feature. So that's quite interesting. Other features they're working on include a new tab activity center, which will provide you with insights into your browsing usage, what websites you visit the most, what words you search for, how long you're spending on web pages or in tabs and stuff. There's also a tab grouping feature, which is already in Edge, but this is supposed to be like a smart version of that, which will automatically group your tabs. So say you have a bunch of different shopping websites open, the Edge browser will see that and just automatically group them all together on one side, and it will give it a little sort of tag that says
it's
shopping.
already getting a little smarter now, because like when you do create a new grouping in Edge, it'll actually sometimes it renames it does a smart rename, like it actually
right. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying.
What you're doing.
A lot of this stuff is actually already available to test in pieces via Edge flags and stuff. And that's because, as far as I'm aware, Phoenix itself isn't like a specific version that will release in one go. As far as I'm aware, it does seem like they're just going to roll these bits and pieces out over time to eventually build the vision for Phoenix. So it won't be like, today we're launching Edge Phoenix and it's all here now. It'll be like, this month we're launching the rounded tabs. Next month we're launching the smart grouping. Month after, here's tab center. La la la. So it doesn't seem to be happening all at once, which is fine, I guess. Especially with browsers, you've got to be careful. Changing too much can scare users away. So I guess they're going to sort of do this gradually over time. But yeah, Edge Phoenix is definitely a real thing, and it is definitely their attempt at, I guess, differentiating and competing in the browser space with its own unique take on what a browser can be, rather than basically trying to copy Chrome, because that's what Edge has been up until now. To be honest, it's very Chrome-like, looks like Chrome, feels like Chrome, but hopefully with the Phoenix stuff that will start to change and Edge can sort of become its own thing. I would love to know numbers on how many people use Edge. I know that Chrome is still the primary browser on the internet. Most people still use Chrome. A lot of people really don't like Edge, or at the very least they really don't like Microsoft trying to force Edge onto them, which is totally understandable. There was a story earlier this week that the Edge icon was reappearing on desktops after people deleted it. Microsoft is aware of that issue, as they call it, and will likely release a fix. I don't know if it was an issue or if they were doing it on purpose and are now pretending it's an issue because nobody liked it. But yeah, that's all going on. But yeah, Edge is, they're still they still want Edge to be successful. They are still building it out. They're still doing loads with it, and I really like Edge. I actually do love the stuff they're doing with Edge, and I'll be really interested to see how much of this Phoenix Vision actually ships, because I do think differentiation in the browser market is important, because all the browsers do the same thing these days. They'll display web pages and they all support extensions and yada yada. I'd love to see Edge differentiate with unique features that no other browser has, and so we'll see how far they can get with that.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. The split screen thing, as you mentioned, is in Canary now, and you can enable it via flags, which is kind of cool. I haven't tested it yet myself, but that's a really nifty feature. I will say, while Edge kind of looks like Chrome-ish, but they've really added so many more features than Chrome these days. I think the biggest one for most people, or I don't know, maybe it's just me, is the sleeping tabs thing. Which you can really be aggressive about, where it's like, oh, if you don't use it, even after a few seconds, it just goes to sleep and saves RAM, it saves CPU cycles. Then on a laptop, that improves battery life. So, I think they're doing a lot of cool stuff. They have the shopping thing, which is just becoming much more interesting with the cashback stuff, where they automatically fill in coupons for you, which I think is super brilliant. They have the screenshot tool, which is kind of cool. Of course, the sharing and stuff. The collections is unbelievable. The grouping of tabs into, grouping them together and naming stuff, I think, is really nice. So they're doing a lot more. And yeah, obviously they want to introduce, you can, I don't know, has the Windows 11 visual effects, has that gone official yet? Because I enabled that via flags.
Yeah, it's not official. That's what surprised me. I thought that was already rolling out, or already had rolled out, but no, it hasn't. Edge still looks like old Edge because that rounded tabs UI is still in Edge flags only for now.
For those curious, if you go into Edge : //flags and then search for Windows 11, you should see the Windows 11 effects thing, and you can turn it on, restart the browser. Then if you go into settings and visual stuff, you should see an option for it, and you click that and you need to restart the browser again. But it'll deliver some like acrylic effects, and you can do things like, there's also the scroll bar. You can make their new scroll bar design and all that. So there's like a lot of like hidden things that they're working on. But yeah, they do want to bring the stuff on slowly as to not confuse people. But yeah, I'm like you. I really like Edge. Because it is depending on what you use, right? If you're on your phone and you use Chrome all the time, you're going to end up using Chrome on your desktop, very likely. Same if you're already tied into Firefox. And, Brave, I think, is a really cool browser as well, and doing some really interesting things to differentiate and really focusing on privacy. But regarding the market share stuff, yeah, it's flat. Nothing's really changed. It's the hardest market, I think, to make a difference. And technically, at least going by Stat Counter, their market share is down a smidge. Their highest was 4.45% in November 2002. As of December, it's wait, is that the right number? No, Edge, yeah. And then it's 4.23%.
I actually
December.
am surprised at how low that number is. I don't know why I thought they were in like 10 to 15% range, but 4%. So who's second place? It can't be Edge at 4%.
Safari.
It really? Oh,
Safari.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense.
And the reason for that is because this is counting the iPhone, right? This is mobile too. And so you're getting, it makes sense, a lot of people use the web on their phones, and people are on their phones all the time, so Safari gets a boost. And of course, you have a lot of Mac users who will just default to using Safari because of the tie-ins and integration. Chrome is 64.68%, and that is,
where's Firefox?
Firefox is 3.01%.
Oh, okay. So they're even lower. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
And Opera is 2.25%. Samsung Internet has more usage than Firefox by a smidge.
That's actually surprising. That's very impressive for Samsung. Well done, Samsung.
Yeah, it is pretty bizarre. But again, that goes to the mobile stuff. But yeah, when you look at these stats, and assuming they're correct, or at least in the ballpark, it's just flat. We're talking every quarter, it's just like a 0.3% change, maybe in some direction for some of these, but there's no like spikes. I don't know how you fix that. So
Yeah.
and change that. Like it's kind of like search, a lot of people rely on Google. Bing has been slowly kind of crawling there, but you don't see spikes ever. Maybe that'll change if Bing integrates ChatGPT. And, this is an article Shruti did on Android Central that I helped with talking about this. Like, the ChatGPT thing with Bing and search might be their one trick that they need to really separate themselves from Google search. It's probably their best chance. I don't think it will like change the market completely, but they may be able to finally get some people to switch over, and it's probably their best chance for that. And that's probably why Microsoft is, probably really, really giving consideration about how they can use this technology. And Google, of course, is supposedly super paranoid about this, where even the ex-founders of Google have come back in to sort of provide guidance on this, because basically everyone's been caught off guard about how advanced ChatGPT is. And that's why you're just hearing a lot more about it. A lot of the industry is like, wow, we didn't know that we're this advanced with this technology. It's still not perfect, of course, but and the fact Microsoft is there, they did the $1 billion investment. There was a rumor that they're doing a $10 billion thing, and they have sort of like exclusive early access to some of this technology to use it. Is, I mean, kudos to Microsoft for being ahead of the curve on that one. But we'll see, because the reason I bring this up with the browser stuff is because you'll probably see this AI stuff come into the browser, since Bing and Edge are so closely tied together. And yeah, making a smart browser could be super interesting with AI, but I guess we'll see. Moving on, I guess we'll do my Xbox editorial thing here. So even do I have the? Yeah, here it is. It's called "Radical Conservatives Drag Xbox into Lame Anti-Woke Culture War." I feel like the word woke, it's evolved so much. It started off, with the Black community and using it as a term to sort of evoke just being aware of, the terrible things that have been happening and the systemic issues that are happening to that community. And then it was, as the comedian Bill Burr joked about, like it was hijacked by white women to like basically feel better about themselves while talking about issues that technically don't directly affect them, but they feel guilty about. And, and then of course it went online, and now it's all over Twitter. And, I don't want to go too much into it. Personally, I find, I'm very sympathetic to racial concerns. At the same time, I think a lot of the, what's considered woke and all this, the left has gone a little overboard, I think, on this. It comes from a good intention, though. They really just don't want people bullied. They don't want people to be mean to each other. They don't want people to be racist or sexist. Like, I think all those intentions are really good. And sometimes, of course, good intentions can go too far. Or at least the changes happen too quickly. Even I feel like I need a newsletter to keep up on all the changes, on how to even talk about, like even right now, I feel uncomfortable talking about this because I'm not caught up in the vernacular, because I just don't normally engage in this kind of conversation. But though, of course, now the word has been hijacked by the right, because they just use it to label. And I was talking with Donna Sakar about this from Microsoft. She does a lot of the mobility stuff on Microsoft, accessibility issues, super important, right? Big cause for Microsoft. That is really good. So people with disabilities can have access to this technology. She even gets this stuff, like people write her nasty emails and all this. And I feel like it's like, basically now, anytime you want to do something good for the world, it's woke. Like that's what it is. It's like, I don't want to litter. Oh, you're a woke liberal. Like, I don't know. I just don't like garbage in my front yard or something like that, or like, we should curb emissions. Oh, you're woke. It's like, no, I don't like breathing in poison. like, can we have both things? So the reason I bring this up is because it happened with Xbox this week, right? Everything's being like dragged into this stupid conversation. So what happened was Xbox introduced an option to a thing into the Insider program, where it would default on Xbox that your Xbox would power down during off-time hours. And especially with the newer Xboxes, this is not an issue, because the boot times, they've really focused on making it very quick. Because to be fair, older Xboxes do take a while to boot up. Like, you hit it, and then you have to take a while for that green screen to come on, and it's even booting Android is slow for goodness sakes. But Xbox, Microsoft has been working on that with the newer devices, and they have way more horsepower too to handle that stuff. So it's kind of a moot point. So they're setting that as the default behavior. I said it's setting in default because you could just go back into settings and go, no, just leave me on standby sleep. Problem solved, right? And I should mention, nothing really changes. Even when it's in an off mode, it will still update games, apps, and do system feature updates overnight for you. So it's not like turning it off, next time you boot up, your Xbox, it's going to start downloading tons of updates, and you're like, oh, come on, I just want to play a video game, right? It won't do that. So it's like, and really the benefit now, we were just talking about at the beginning of the podcast, energy costs, right? They're very expensive, especially in the UK now. They're expensive here in the United States too. Yeah, computers and Xboxes drain a lot of power. Like, when you think about, like, my computer has an 800-watt power supply unit, and they have ones now 1,000 watts, and a 4,000 4080 GPU power, for what it draws in, along with an Intel 13 gen processor. Like, it actually sucks up. It's like running a space heater basically all the time. And the same with Xbox, like the Series X and everything, it draws a lot of power. And when it's off, it's still drawing power, even though you're not technically using it. It's just more convenient, so you have that instant resume kind of thing. But for a lot of people, saving money is kind of a big deal. And this is like a really good feature to help people save money on their monthly costs. Yeah, you could make an argument it's only a couple of dollars here and there, but over the year, yeah, you may end up saving $60 or something like that. I don't know. But it's almost a moot point, because if you don't like any of this, you think it's stupid, just put it back to sleep and standby. But the right wing jumped in on it. And to be fair, like the Blaze, which is a conservative website, they did a story on this. And the article was fine. Like, the article didn't editorialize. They didn't mention liberals. They didn't mention anything. They just literally gave the news, but it was on the Blaze. And the reason I say that is because the Blaze typically doesn't cover Xbox or tech or these kind of things. But their headline, was pretty clear. Let's see. Yeah, the headline was Xbox. This is it. Xbox will force gamers to power down to fight climate change, touting the first carbon-aware console. Now, is that necessarily a wrong title? Technically not. But when it's on the Blaze, it was a clear signal and a wink to its audience about what that meant. First of all, force. Force is doing a lot of heavy lifting right there, right? It sets it as a default, but you're definitely not being forced to anything. And to fight climate change, those are buzzwords if you're a conservative. So what happened was Ted Cruz, who, senator of Texas, he's not a very likable human being. Conservatives went and ran with this. He tweeted out, first gas stoves, which is a whole other thing. I can explain that quickly. In the U.S., a study came out showing that gas stoves, even when not being used, they still emit emissions, and people breathe them in. And they think up to I think it's 12 or 17% of kids with asthma get it because of this, which is pretty significant.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and they're saying it causes all sorts of damage. And there's breathing gas. It's not a nootropic, right? It ain't going to improve cognitive performance. At the very least, you may break even. But at the worst, yeah, you could be, especially on a developing brain, you could be damaging it, which I wouldn't want to take the chance on. So there was talk of banning gas stoves, not retroactively, meaning you had to go rip out your gas stove. It just meant they would have to they would start phasing out sales and use electric ones, which are way better anyway. So that's where that came from. So first gas stoves, then your coffee. I don't know what that one's about. I think that's probably with the acrylic in coffee. They think it could lead to some cancers. Not really sure. And then he says, now they're gunning for your Xbox. And then he retweeted this story. So obviously this was the, virtue signaling for the conservatives on the right. Congressman Troy Nehls, also from Texas, which Texas is such a Well, they're like Florida. They're very unique in the United States. He tweeted, "They want to take your guns. They want to take your gas stoves. And now they want to take your Xbox. What's next?" Um, Obviously, no one's trying to take your Xbox. And now they're gunning for you. And I don't know who they is, right? They're doing this. Like, yeah, Microsoft. Yeah. Okay. It's they. They, though. But that's how, extremists on both sides always use they as this imaginary version. The Young America's Foundation, who I've never heard of, but they're another conservative thing, said, LOL, now the woke brigade is after video games, all in the name of climate change. Xbox will force gamers to power down to fight climate change, and blah, 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 blah. The New York State Teen Republicans, which, LOL on that one, that's a unique group. You think they would also know better if they're teens. You won't be allowed to get this. They got this so wrong. You won't be allowed to play or download games unless the most renewable energy in your local grid is being used. Meanwhile, China is building more coal mines. This woke insanity has to stop. I'm not really aware of that. And then I just threw in, just for hilariousness, the stereotypical old guy. I always love when the white old guy chimes in with his non-understanding of this technology. Big tech is pushing its woke green agenda to an extreme. Lefty Microsoft is doing firmware update that will force owners' Xbox consoles to automatically shut down to save the environment. If people thought they owned their Xboxes, it's a horror. Microsoft is lefty, actually. I mean, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, that's probably true. But private companies, they can do whatever they want, and they can hire whoever they want. And sorry, if you like free enterprise and capitalism, you can't really criticize Microsoft being lefty. Sorry. I don't know how they're pushing the woke agenda to an extreme. Like, this guy Roy Parrott, who looks about 82, doesn't have an Xbox. So these people just chime in on this stuff. Of course, this is a bigger problem, and this happens on the left too. I just want to point out, this isn't just a right wing thing, but people read the headline, and that's it. They read that Xbox will force gamers, and they're like, "Oh my God, the outrage!" And they retweet the story. They put in their 2 cents because the world needs to know what this 82-year-old white guy or the teen Republicans of New York needs to think about gaming. And they chime in with their ignorant opinions, and then the story spreads and becomes a thing. And it's dumb. I hate all this culture war stuff because, first of all, most of it's nonsense. All it's doing is it's meant to divide people because tribalism is in right now. And people love being on teams. And that all starts with sports, to be honest, which I always find to be a completely irrational thing. I'm not saying you should be into sports. I get that part. I'm just saying when people identify strongly with teams, which Zach should know about because he's in the UK and they have this, what's it, football thing, and you guys go a little absurd over that. Of course, that's all of Europe, to be honest. But that affiliation, jingoism, Noam Chomsky did a whole thing about this, which was pretty funny. It's irrational attachment. The reason you're into a sports team is because it's where you live. That's it. And if you move to a different city, once in a while, someone Rudy Giuliani famously grew up in Brooklyn. It was supposed to I forgot what team it was, but he liked the Yankees. And it was just this, he walked around his neighborhood and people would yell at him because he wore a Yankees hat as a kid, right? So but it's something that's completely stupid. But this tribalism then expands into politics, where it's always been. You have left and right, Republican, conservative, liberals, and all that. But now it's gone to this level, your choice of pizza, your choice of coffee, if you want to use an electric stove. For years, people forget about this. Before Elon Musk became cool with the right, people on the right hated Tesla. They would key the cars, pickup trucks. It was called what was it called? It was rolling something. They were the ones that were burning diesel would roll up to a Tesla and blast them with their smoky black exhausts. And people would just vandalize the cars, and because they all thought Teslas were made in China, and it was Chinese alien technology that, trying to subvert America, which was hilarious because Teslas were designed and built in the United States. It was the most American car you could buy at the time. But that was, so even electric cars got dragged into this, which was dumb. Now it's like changed a bit because Musk is kind of cool with the right. But everything is just become in the United States like this, like everybody has to have an opinion, and it's stupid. It's just meant to divide people, and it's dumb because like we used to at least, yeah, you can disagree with politics. My best friend growing up, one of my best friends, Rob, and I haven't talked to him in many years. He was very conservative. He was into the military. His parents were conservatives. They ran on the city council. They were like my second family. And we would, this when I was a teenager, they would listen to Rush Limbaugh and all that. And we would always debate and discuss stuff like that because I was like a lefty anarchist, still am. But we would debate that stuff, have fun with it, but we were still all friends and just enjoy life and go out and do things. And like, people can't do that anymore, right? And it's a real shame. Now it's like even dumb. It's like now they're trying to bring Xbox into this. Like really, like the gaming community has enough on its plate in terms of controversies, right? They have their own issues already to deal with. Do they really need to have this brought in? The good news is I think this really hasn't caught on. I think even a lot of, conservatives and people on the right who game even are like, all right, this is kind of stupid. We're not going to necessarily go with this. But yeah, there's my rant on this. So don't fall for this. And if you're into the culture war, just step outside, touch some grass, just talk to your neighbor. Most people don't care about this stuff. I don't know. Even like the gender bathroom thing. I don't know a single person that cares about that. Like it's a big deal on Twitter.
The internet heightens this sort of thing. It like gives you funnel vision into the world of this sort of nonsense. Whereas in reality, I think the majority of humanity doesn't care about a lot of that stuff that headlines are saying, because those generate clicks. It's all about clickbait at the end. It's about hate clicking. Hate clicking's the in right now. Anything that's controversial or generates hate clicks is what these websites are striving to sort of publish, and that's why you see this sort of stuff. And Twitter's just like the perfect, like magnifies all of it, whereas reality isn't the case. What's funny is when I read the Xbox news and was like, when they announced that update was coming out, I assumed it was because energy prices are so high, but then I remembered that isn't the case everywhere currently. That's very much so the case in the UK and I think a lot of Europe, but I don't know if it doesn't seem to be the case in the US. Energy prices seem to be okay over there. But I had actually turned this feature on months ago because there was a report, I think it was from The Verge months back, saying turning this feature off will actually save you about £5 a month on your energy bill, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. Especially
my estimate was right then. That's about £60 a year then. So
yeah, exactly, £60 a year for a box that's sitting idle. For most, like, I'm not spending £60 a year for a box that sits idle. I'd rather turn that off and save £60. So I've had that feature off for ages. And when Microsoft announced that they were doing it, I like genuinely assumed it was because of the energy stuff, not realizing that that's actually not a global issue. So it's so funny how in the US this was the reaction to that, whereas over here it was like, oh, this makes sense. It's saving us £60 a year.
You would figure that, like, if you're concerned with either the American people or whatever, you'd be like, yeah, this is for working families. This is a really good thing. I should also point out this feature with this idea of like sleep and standby or powering off and all this first came out in 2015. That's when they first started pushing this environmental stuff on the Xbox to save things. They're just changing its default behavior now. Which again, is fine because you can, if it bothers you, you can change it. Like,
I just think it's funny how over here in the UK, no matter what side you're on politics, everybody viewed that news as a good thing because we're all suffering from the energy crisis. Whereas over in the States, it's like, oh my goodness.
That's the irony of like all this stuff. It's like, I'm pretty sure right now if like liberals in the United States came out hardcore for the Second Amendment, you'd have conservatives change their minds. Like that's the state of things right now. It's like when one side is pro something, the other side is automatically against it. No matter what it is.
I know.
It's
so
just
dumb.
the fact
such
that
a waste of everyone's time and energy and life. Just
It really is the social media stuff though, because like I said, you walk around and unfortunately it has spilled into real life. That's kind of disturbing stuff because years ago, you would have like all this tribalism online, but it was just like you could leave it there. But now it is starting to spill into real life a little bit, which is becoming annoying. But like for the most part, most people don't care about this stuff. Most people aren't on Twitter. That's why like arguing with people on Twitter is just dumb because when you look at the amount of people who actually use Twitter, it's like very tiny. It's like, and also you never really won an argument on Twitter. No one's ever won an argument. I stopped doing that years ago because it's just sort of like, what's the point in all this? But people need to just take a step back. We can have political differences. We can talk about policies and debate that stuff. That's fine. But the culture stuff, everybody needs to relax. Culture changes. It progresses. It evolves. You may not like it always, but it's going to go forward. It never goes backwards. Some people need to get used to it. But yeah, keep your hands off the Xbox. This is just dumb. So, but there we go. Quickly, as we round up the podcast here, and if you like my rants, please subscribe to my newsletter. I can do a lot of good rants. I should mention, and probably won't show because I have the blurry thing on, but this came in today, and if you are listening to the podcast, I'll read it. It's the Razer Edge. If you don't remember, the Razer Edge is their new handheld gaming system, which I'm very, very excited about. I haven't opened the box yet. So this is the one I bought. So there's no, I'm not violating an NDA with Razer. I bought this because when they first announced it, they said like the first, like, I don't know, a couple thousand people who used a special code could sign up for early access to buy it. And it's only like a day or two. You were able to like buy it 2 days in advance, which is what I did. So to refresh, it's a Android device, 6.8 inch display, AMOLED display with 144 hertz refresh. I forgot the resolution on it. Actually, do I have it on the box here, or I can pull it up? It runs the Snapdragon G3X Gen 1 gaming platform, which we haven't seen much of. The display is full HD plus, but yeah, AMOLED, 144 hertz. Powered by the Razer Nexus app, features pass-through 3.5mm audio for high fidelity sound and voice. It runs Android 12, gets really good battery life. And so, it has a HyperSense vibration in the controls, which the controller actually pops off too, which is cool because it gets smaller for transportation, which is nice. Or if you just want to use touchscreen on it, you can just use that. The resolution is 2400 by 1080. So 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, micro SD expansion up to 2 terabyte, 5,000 milliamp battery, and it weighs 400 grams with a controller, 263 without. And the price is $399. So what does it do? Of course, well, obviously it runs Android games. So you can just go to the Google Play Store, download your Android games and do that. You can sideload APKs. Razer was careful in how they wanted to talk about this because we had to be careful too. But yeah, you can install emulators on this thing and just run emulated games on it, like on Steam Deck. And that's a huge community, right? So people who want to run old Nintendo games or Sega games, you can do that right on here. And because you can put a micro SD with 2 terabytes of storage, yeah, you can put a lot of stuff on here. But okay, so it's just a glorified, Android phone. All right, but the other thing does is the cloud gaming, right? So it handles NVIDIA GeForce, Xbox Cloud Gaming, and whatever services else out there. I know there are other streaming platforms. What do they say here? Android, PC, Xbox, yeah, and cloud gaming. Yeah, I don't list all the cloud, but it has like a special interface where you can just, click the Xbox one and then it'll launch and it goes into that, log into your accounts. And then of course you have two options depending on what you want to do. You could stream from your local Xbox, which has always been a thing, or you can use cloud gaming. I think the Xbox tie-in, of course, is cool, especially if you have Game Pass, obviously. The big news, though, is GeForce Now this week. So they announced they're rolling out they're the same thing. They do cloud gaming, a bunch of titles. Their thing, though, is they're powering their cloud with RTX 4080 GPUs, which is way significantly better than what Microsoft is using to power their cloud gaming. That means you could actually play like AAA titles like on high graphics mode, like really good quality DLSS and all that stuff, and stream that to your handheld or your computer and get a very powerful experience in terms of gaming. That's wild. And to have it on, so I played with this at CES, and the display is just jaw-droppingly good because it's AMOLED, 6.8 inch, it's large, it's touchscreen, obviously. And for Android games, they remap the controls So you can use the physical controllers on Android games, which a lot of them aren't built for this kind of Xbox style gaming. So they solved that problem. I know a lot of people have the question like, why use this instead of just your smartphone? And it's a legit thing. I get for some people, they're just happy using their smartphone. Obviously, you could just use your Samsung and buy the Razer Kishi, and you basically have a similar device. All right, so what are the pros and cons, right? The cons are you're going to kill your battery life on your phone. And if you're near a charger or you're at home, not a big deal. If you're out and about, that sucks. A lot of people, you're going to get, you know, battery anxiety and all that kind of stuff. It makes the phone hot. The other thing, yeah, phones are powerful, but this processor is specifically built for gaming by Samsung, Snapdragon, sorry, Qualcomm, the G3X Gen 1 gaming platform. It's supposedly a much more powerful CPU and GPU than what's found in phones. And in fact, this has a passive cooling on it. So it has like vents on it to cool down the chip. No active fan though, which is really nice from what I understand. Um, so you're going to get more performance out of this. You get really good battery life. You get dedicated it's basically a Kishi V2 Pro, the grips on it for the controllers. The difference with these is they vibrate, which is kind of nice. But some people want a separate dedicated device for gaming, and I'm one of those people. Yeah, I could use my phone, but I like the idea of just picking this up on the couch and it's just already ready to go for gaming versus my phone. With the phones, you got to be like, oh, do I have my gaming mode on? Am I getting notifications in? Blah, 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 blah. The processor's not going to be as fast. I'm going to kill my battery. It's going to get really hot, all that kind of jazz. So not to mention, if you have a budget phone, $500 or something like that, or it's an older phone, this is $399. Like, you don't have to go buy a brand new high-end phone. This display and everything like that is going to be way better than a lot of phones out there anyway. So it's like for $399, it's actually, I think, a pretty good value. It blows away Logitech's G Cloud, that's for sure. I will mention for $359, you can actually get it cheaper on Verizon. So they have a special deal. There's a Verizon version that has 5G ultra wideband, which Verizon ultra wideband's pretty amazing. Like it's insanely fast. So you can absolutely stream no problem. The bad thing with ultra wideband is it's hard to get a really good signal. It's very short distance. It's also absurdly expensive. Like I don't know if I would. It's like $80 a month for ultra wideband, and it's just like you better be really using data. But I think it's a cool option. This is the one I have here is just the Wi-Fi model, which is nice. So unfortunately, US only for now. It will go wider, limited production looks like. I know Jez Corden, our gaming guru at Windows Central, really, really wants it. So I might have to buy him one and send it over to the UK. Zach, I don't know. What do you think about this? Are you a believer in separate dedicated devices for handheld gaming? And you play Xbox. Like Halo and everything like that. Would you use this device to sit on the couch and play, or?
I don't know. I've never been super interested in the whole handheld gaming thing. Like I used to have a PSP back in the day. That was like was awesome to have at the time. But since the PSP, I've really the Nintendo 3DS and that came out. I never jumped on that. I never jumped on the Nintendo Switch. I think I've just become settled with sitting on a couch with a controller using a big 4K 65-inch TV and a surround sound system. That's just the gaming experience I enjoy. And the idea of sitting with like a 6 or 7-inch screen with really tinny speakers that play awful audio just doesn't appeal to me really. And also, I don't think there's many mobile games that I'm gonna really invest a lot of time into that would warrant me spending $400 on a device like this. The games that I would be interested in playing are on Xbox, and I'd rather sit down with an actual controller and a big TV to experience them. But I know that's just me, and I know there's a few people who we work with who really love cloud streaming specifically, and I think the closest I've come to is the Steam Deck, only because the Steam Deck plays PC games, and there's one or two PC games that I actually do sometimes sit down and invest a lot of time into. Earlier this week, I got caught up playing a game called Software Inc., which is only on PC. It's a mouse and keyboard based game. You can't get it on Xbox or anything. But I love that game, and every now and then I'll sit down in front of my computer and play that for hours. And I would love the Steam Deck. I think is the only device really that could probably do that. But yeah, I don't have a Steam Deck either. So at this point, I think I'm just waiting for the next one.
Sure. Yeah, I have Steam Deck, and someone's asking, does it compete with Steam Deck? I would say in some ways it does. It's really kind of an in-between device. Like, you have the Logitech G Cloud, which is basically it doesn't have a lot of the features. I don't think it. Yeah, and it's got a lot of things kind of holding it back, and I think it's more expensive too. And then you have like Steam Deck, and which Steam Deck you install games locally on. You could, of course, you could do Xbox game streaming if you just go into Linux mode and use the browser. And there's actually a trick you can do that to install it, which is kind of nice. But this is the problem with the Steam Deck is obvious too, right? You can only do so much for graphics on it because you're limited by the CPU and GPU, which is powerful. But even then, like, if you're doing like a 2D platformer or a simple game, you can get 4, maybe 5 hours out of a Steam Deck. But if you're doing like a AAA shooter, 2 hours, right? The battery life is just going to go down the tubes. Where this thing is going to be like probably over 10 hours easily for streaming. And yeah, they're different. The streaming thing I think is definitely a different. I feel like streaming for gaming it needs something like this to really kind of catch on because
Yeah.
like if you just have an Xbox at home and a TV, there's not a lot of argument for streaming. Like, oh, you could go into the other room and stream your game on a computer, and that's good for families. But I think for play in families and houses with limited screens, like you only have one or two, but you have a family of five, um, this device will be much more interesting because, and that's what Zachary Bowden, who reviewed the Logitech G Cloud, said in his review. Like, some of his family were using the other TV to play video games or watch TV or something, but he could then just jump on this and continue playing his game without any issue. And he actually said the quality was way better. It kind of made that's a good review because I think he wrote an editorial about it. He made him a believer in this technology. I will say it's niche in that sense, right? Not everybody kind of wants this. But the ability to have, I kind of like sometimes sitting on the couch and just playing like a classic because I grew up with Game Boy and everything like that. The idea of like doing that with this, I think, is actually really nice. I get the idea of also just sitting on the couch with a controller in a corner and play on a 65-inch TV, right? That's also a great experience. But not everybody can share the
Yeah.
TV all the time. So
Also, not everybody's, at least in my case, not everybody has the internet for streaming games yet. My internet isn't good enough
sure.
to reliably do it. It can do it for a little bit, but it does drop frames. It does lag out every now and then. Input, you can feel the input sort of being okay and then dropping a bit. Like it's not. I'm on an 80 down, 20 up, and it's not great on that. And at least in the UK, I think that's still quite a widespread sort of down internet package for a lot of people. I know, like in the cities and stuff, you can get like 10 gig down or 1 gig down, whatever these days. But not here where I am. Trust me, I wish I could because I would pay for it, but I can't get that here. So I haven't really been able to feel the benefits of cloud gaming just yet, sadly.
Yeah, and it's a good point, but it's also one of those things that, yeah, that problem's being solved, right? As we evolve and the technology comes along, it's getting better and better. So I think that'll eventually go away. I like the other thing too. This is much smaller. So Steam Deck is great, but Steam Deck's also huge.
Yeah.
The first thing anybody that gets a Steam Deck is like, wow, I didn't realize it was this big. And it's
I was expecting it to be like a Nintendo Switch, but it's not. It's massive.
No. It's not a thick device, and it's ergonomically great, but it's like a dinner plate. It's just like it's really like, wow, okay, this thing's big. And if you put it into a case and then you travel with it, it takes up a lot of space in your bag, I assure you. And it's one reason I don't take it a lot of times when I travel because I'm like limited on space, or I just don't want this big bulky thing with me, which is a shame because that's kind of the point of it. Where this, it's going to be way more compact, but also has a better display on it. But yeah, if I get to a hotel, would I be able to play this with the hotel's internet? Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be something I'll have to kind of figure out. But that problem is going to solve itself. And of course, if you get the 5G version and you're a real baller, then you don't, I guess, have an issue. Of course, I should mention Verizon's ultra wideband is one part of their 5G, but this does the other millimeter wave. So you still can get regular 5G from them as well. So it's not like you need to use ultra band all the time. But yeah, we'll be reviewing this device. I actually won't be reviewing it. I'm going to give it to Zach Bowden because he's a hardcore gamer, already reviewed the Logitech G Cloud and had a lot of thoughts. And he's recently a convert, so I'm probably going to send him this. But I will be doing one or two thought pieces on it. Like I'm going to do some photos and I'll give my opinions and write about it. Because I really do think one, Razer's hardware is great, and I think this is kind of the device I've been waiting for the cloud stuff because I really haven't done much with cloud. And the other cool thing about cloud too is for Windows and ARM users, it's kind of a big deal because now you can actually play hardcore video games on your Surface Pro 9 5G. Like it solves that problem, which is kind of nice. So for ARM, as that becomes a bigger deal going forward in the PC world, I think cloud gaming is actually going to be way cooler and way more important to that. But I'm just excited because I think it's going to be one of the first things to sort of make cloud gaming a little bit more mainstream. But look forward to our review for that in the coming weeks. It should be exciting stuff. And I'm curious what other people think about it too and how well it sells. It's going to be an interesting thing. All right. I think we'll wrap it up. We'll do the thing of the week before we go to Q&A. Zach, do you have a thing of the week?
I actually don't. I was just trying to think of one, but I don't think... did we talk about The Last of Us last week? Because that's probably
I think so.
Week.
Yeah.
Again, then. Because episode 2 came out. It's going to be my thing of the week for the next 9 weeks.
I still haven't watched that, but that's on my to-do list because everybody says I know it's supposed to be really good. Yeah, I don't think I really watched any cool things this week, so nothing there. I am going to plug the new Xbox game Hi-Fi Rush, which popped out of nowhere. We kind of knew it was like a game that was happening. It's sort of like a what's the secret? It's like kind of like that game. I forgot now. The one where you roller skate around that came out years ago. Someone in the comments can tell me. I'm not very good with the video game history. But Hi-Fi Rush is now available on Game Pass. It's also available on Steam and other platforms too. But it's nice it's on Xbox. And Zach Bowden wrote a really long and nicely laid out editorial saying Xbox Hi-Fi Rush is unbelievably awesome fun. And it's getting very positive reviews. The graphics are great on it. It's sort of like this, reminds me of Borderlands kind of cartoon comic book style graphics with the thick black lines, very vibrant colors. And yeah, it has awesome music on it, and the gameplay is supposed to be really good. It's just, I'm going to play it this weekend. I'm going to try it on the Razer Edge. I'll try it on my Steam Deck probably as well. But this looks like a really cool game. So everybody's just really raving about it. So like I said, Hi-Fi Rush on your Xbox. Go check it out and let us know what you think. All right, we're going to end the podcast here. We're going to do Q&A with the audience. So if you guys have those questions, start firing them off. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN on Twitter. We do have our Ask Windows Central video will be out. Well, if you're listening to this Friday, it should be out on Saturday on the website. I should also mention, you probably want to start, I'll tell you when. We're going to be relaunching our newsletter pretty soon. We have big plans around our newsletter, doing a couple versions of them for different, one for gaming, one for news roundup and all this. And it's going to have some original content in it, and some of it will be early access content. That is, you'll get it first in a newsletter before it goes up on the website, which is pretty nifty. I don't have an ETA on that outside of the next couple of weeks as we're working on designing it and getting it ready. But newsletters are kind of like made a comeback, which is kind of fun. I guess I understand a lot of people are super busy and they just like getting the inbox and just tell me the cool stuff that's happened. Totally understandable. But we're going to try to, right now we do have a newsletter, but just, our best and top stories of the week, but it's not curated in that formal sense. But we'll be doing that. So keep, you could subscribe now, and it's just going to, change and get better in the coming weeks. But do that. Other than that, we'll be back next Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch us on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. And of course, as I said, follow us on Twitter. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Nice. First question is, when Surface Neo? Never. Dead. That's where it is. Well,
it's called Lenovo made it better. Just go buy that. I don't understand if you want Neo, just get the Lenovo Yoga book. It's that but better.
Or get the Surface Duo. It's that but smaller.
Yeah.
Any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to hang around for a few minutes and do our best to answer them. If there are no questions, we will go.
Well, we'll start our weekend.
Yeah. What's up with the latest Windows 11 builds being now capable to run on ReFS partitions? Is Microsoft finally toying with the idea of replacing NTFS? I have no idea. I do know that Microsoft has been toying with ReFS for a long time, many years. Wasn't you able to install Windows Server on ReFS for a long time? I don't think it's a new thing, but the fact that the client, the air quotes consumer side of Windows, is now technically able to do it is interesting. But no, I have no idea what the plan is there. I tried to ask if ReFS is actually useful. What are the benefits of installing to ReFS versus NTFS, and nobody could give me an answer. So I'm not too sure what ReFS does better than NTFS, other than apparently corrupting files. But everyone said NTFS corrupts files. ReFS corrupts files a lot more often. So it doesn't sound too great from that first sort of thing that I heard about it. Will there be a Surface Laptop Studio 2 announcement this spring? I can tell you there was originally supposed to be, but with the layoffs and now the earnings being quite bad, I don't know if that schedule is still happening. It would not surprise me if a few things have been moved around. The Laptop Studio 2 was supposed to be the spring, but that would not surprise me if they push it to the fall. That way they could also update it with Intel 13th Gen, which I don't know if that was going to happen if they were to launch it in the spring. Surface Go 4 I think is supposed to be spring. But again, with the recent news and whatnot, I don't know if things have been moved around. But yeah, I still think we'll see new services this year. Like it just depends. The question is, when will they now show up? Will it be spring or will it be fall? Because those are the two windows for new services coming out. When does Microsoft present the new services? In the spring and in the fall. Yeah, they are usually May time for April, May for the spring launch, and September, October for the fall launch.
I just got an email from an editorial idea that went to our sister site, What to Wear. I think that's the name of the site. It's about talking to Rosario Dawson about her new fashion line. Like, I like Rosario Dawson. She's awesome. I don't, does this have anything to do with Windows? She's a computer? I'll talk to her about that.
Zach, a few weeks back you mentioned you had to get a replacement Duo 2. Why did you do that? I dropped mine and it broke. So I have Microsoft Complete, so that covers accidental damage as well. And it's actually, honestly, Microsoft support for the Duo was amazing when I used it. They have a thing called Advanced Exchange. And what it is they send you a new, air quotes, new device. It's a refurb, but it's brand new, essentially. No, it doesn't look like it's been used. They send you that first, and then you send your broken one back in the box. And that's what I did. And it was great.
Is that the second time you've broken your Duo? Maybe even third?
Not my Duo 2. Duo 1, I broke the USB-C port on, and I got that replaced. But Duo 2, no, I've only ever done that once.
Yeah. Thoughts on Microsoft no longer selling Windows 10 downloads as of January 31st, 2023? Do not care. Like, I don't see the value in Windows 10 at all. I almost understand better, like, if you want to use Windows 7.
Right, yeah. Like, Windows 10 is just an uglier Windows 11.
Yeah, like, but I don't see any advantage with Windows 10. Windows 7, if you want to make that, okay, I kind of get it, but no, don't care.
Do you think the next Surface phone is 2023 or 2024? I think the foldable is 2024. Yeah. We may get lucky and get that slab phone I mentioned later this year, but I'm not holding my breath for that either. So,
where are you getting a new Duo from? Well, he said it's not new technically; it's a refurb, but it's through Microsoft's own program.
Yeah, so. Well, the other thing to say that is, yes, the headlines have been that Microsoft is out of Duo 2s, and people who need a refurb or a exchange under warranty aren't able to get them anymore, so they're just refunding. That is the case in some regions, not everywhere. In the UK, at least, they still have them. In fact, the Duo 2 is still on sale for new in the Microsoft Store in the UK, last time I checked, which was earlier this week. So yeah, it depends on the region. It's not a worldwide issue, at least not yet. But I'm pretty sure we're getting close to it being a worldwide issue. Right, any more questions? Will the Surface Go 4 come with an ARM version? I had heard that that was something they were toying with. There are prototypes internally that exist of the Surface Go 4 with an ARM chip on the inside in addition to Intel. So possibly. That is all I can tell you for now.
Oh, by the way, yeah, someone guessed the game. Yeah, Jet Set Radio. Yes, correct. That was the game I was thinking of. This hi-fi looks very much. I don't even know if it is a sequel to it, but it's very much in the vein of that at the very least. Someone also mentioned Sunset Overdrive. I wasn't thinking of that, but that's not too dissimilar either. And that was a pretty fun and wild game. That's a very you feel bad for Microsoft a little bit between like Sunset Overdrive and what's that time one that Jez really liked.
Quantum Break.
Yeah, Quantum Break. Like those were effing good games. Like they had cool stories, amazing graphics, and it's just like, I don't know why they didn't like catch on, but like they're tremendously underrated. I don't know. Microsoft tries, but those were cool games.
Thoughts on the leaked Nuvia chip specs? I have not seen those leaked Nuvia chip specs. And any word on when the first laptops will hit the market? So I believe the original schedule was later this year is when the Nuvia chips will be ready for OEMs to start sort of building laptops with. But I don't think we're going to see them to buy until 2024.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, they were supposed to have them by now to start prototyping and working and start thinking about designs with the devices then shipping in volume late 2023. But yeah, I think that was always like a big if, even though Qualcomm doesn't want to admit that publicly. But yeah, I'd be, maybe first half of 2024. But even then, you may only see one or two devices. But they did say they're getting a lot of design wins. That is, OEMs are very interested in building devices around that chip. So we should see.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that they were saying that 2024 they think is going to be a turning point, a tipping point. They called it for ARM on Windows, where it's going to actually click with people. So
I'm curious what they're going to do with the Surface Pro 10, because if there's no new Qualcomm chip for the 5G version, do they just not update the 5G version? Just keep it running Surface Pro 9 and then the Pro 10 is
that does put them in a little bit of a bind, huh?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And then they have to bring back 5G
they
for the
didn't
Intel
think about
version
that
for
when
the
they
Pro 10.
were bringing it to market.
Either that or they postpone the Pro 10 and they don't release one this year. And they wait for next year, 2024, which, given the current condition of the market, maybe they will do that. I don't know. This is what I'm saying, that the schedules that I'd heard for Surface this year are out the window. I can't help you anymore, people.
Debating between getting a Surface Go or Samsung Tab as a secondary device, which would you say is better for stuff that you're doing when you're out and about? I mean, that's a tough one.
I would go for the Surface Go.
I mean, the Surface Go, you can get the keyboard and pen, which turns into basically a little laptop, which is really convenient because I hate using on-screen keyboards for those kind of devices. And so I like just to be able to flip that lid open and just start typing away. I'm way faster. And if you use a pen, notes, and all that kind of stuff, that's cool. On the other hand, the tab, the tab I would say is more of a consumptive device. You're going to watch movies on it. You're going to just read the news. You're going to just read Twitter or Facebook. Maybe say like yes or okay for responses. That's probably fine. I've always found, and I think the majority of people have always kind of found Android tablets to be underwhelming because it just, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird device. I still don't understand iPads either, but that's me. I mean, I love the hardware, but I've never found a use for either of those devices. Yeah, and the kickstand alone is awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. The kickstand on the Go 3 does, open up new opportunities for even if you just want to watch a movie or something like that.
I will say this flew under the radar because the black version came out later, but the black Surface Go 3, I love that. That thing is so nice looking. I saw it in the Microsoft store and I couldn't believe how nice it looks. Because obviously it's not, it doesn't have the grooves for like fan or anything. It's all in an enclosed case and in black, like all the seams and stuff are better hidden and whatnot. It just looks so like, oh, it's so nice. And with the red keyboard cover, it's perfect.
Yeah, Yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Curious, have you
Curious, will
guys
you
fired
guys
up?
fire up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Nokia 1020 in a while? No, I have. I
yeah.
actually never owned a Nokia 1020, believe it or not.
Oh, weird.
I
Mine's behind me, but
I was a 925 to 930 guy. I went from the I went from the Lumia 820. I think it was 820. Yeah, the Lumia 820 to the Lumia 925 to the Lumia 930 and then 950. That was my sort of journey of flagships. I never had the 1520 or the 1020. Sadly,
it's a shame. 1020 was awesome.
I was just really into metal phones, and I just loved because obviously the other ones were polycarbonate, which wasn't bad. Well, I'm not knocking it, but I personally just preferred the cold touch of a metal phone, and so that's why I went through the upgrade path that I did. That 925, that 95 still holds a special place in my heart. I loved that phone so much. It was the first phone with an OLED screen I ever owned, and I was blown away by it. It was 720p OLED. Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah, that was a cool design. I had the 925. That was on T-Mobile here. That was a great design.
Yeah.
The 930 was kind of grew on me a little bit, but I like they were limited, the gold,
Yeah, the white and gold
the
and the
white
black and gold
gold and the
ones.
black
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up getting those, but it sucked because they didn't have the all the bands for the United States.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I was
because in
still
the
used it
US
anyway.
it was that was the Lumia Icon, right? That's what it was called. Whereas
Yeah,
over
that was
here it
just
was
on AT&T. It was the white
yeah,
version.
where it was the 930 over here.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, the icon was slightly different, a little bit more square.
Yeah, because the 930 really was basically a 1520, but in a smaller body.
Hmm.
And I really did I liked the 930. I thought was the best Lumia design, especially if you got it in a good orange and silver. They did that was a really nice colorway for that phone. Do you like moments? I don't mind them actually. I it would be nicer if Microsoft was more open about its schedule for these things because they definitely have a schedule for them. They know when these moments are supposed to be coming, but for whatever reason, they like to pretend that they're just randomly being dropped, which isn't the case. I wish they were more open about a roadmap for them, but other than that, yeah, I like the concept. I do like the idea of new features every few months delivered via enablement packages rather than full new builds because it's just easier for PC, and the downloads are smaller and they're quicker to install. It's just an overall better system. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of moments. Can they make a Surface Laptop Studio without the external GPU? I really like the style of the hinge. I mean, they could. I don't think they need to though, because the use case for that I think is quite low. They sold the Surface Book without a dedicated GPU. They had a version without, and I don't think that one ever sold very well. It didn't make sense to buy for the price. Certainly at $15.99, do not buy the entry level Surface Book without a dedicated GPU. It just literally made no sense monetarily. And I think that would be the same story with a Surface Laptop Studio. Sadly. How do you know which moments you're on? It doesn't matter because you don't get to choose. The moments are basically automatic for end users. If you update Windows, if you check for Windows Update every month, you will be on the latest moment. They are rolled into security updates on Patch Tuesday. So. Right, last few questions, then it's time to head off. So get them in now. Final call for questions. Alright, doesn't look like we're getting any more questions. Someone says they don't like the rants.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Get your own YouTube channel.
Yeah. All right, that's it for now. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We will keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.